Welcome to our continuing series, Questions and Answers for a World in Crisis, from the words of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. New Birth, Part 1. From Sri Aurobindo. The letter you wrote to me shows a surprising inability to understand the plainest distinctions and the simplest truths. The one who was an instrument for giving birth to the physical body of X was no doubt in her lifetime his material mother. But the relation which exists between the mother here and X, and between the mother and all who accept her, is a psychic and spiritual motherhood. It is a far greater relation than that of the physical mother to her child. It gives all that human motherhood can give, but in a much higher way, and it contains in itself infinitely more. It can, therefore, because it is greater and more complete, take altogether the room of the physical relation and replace it both in the inward and the outward life. There is nothing here that can confuse anyone who has common sense and a straightforward intelligence. The physical fact cannot in the least stand in the way of the greater psychic and spiritual truth, or prevent it from becoming true. X is perfectly right when he says that this is his true mother, for she has given him a new birth in an inner life and is creating him anew for a diviner existence. The idea of a spiritual motherhood is not an invention of this ashram. It is an eternal truth which has been recognized for ages past, both in Europe and in Asia. The distinction I have drawn between the physical relation and the psychic and spiritual relation is also not a new invention. It is an idea known and understood everywhere, and found to be perfectly plain and simple by all. From the Mother. What is called new birth is the birth into the spiritual life, into the spiritual consciousness. It is bearing in itself something of the spirit which, in the individual, through the soul, can begin to govern the life and be the master of existence. But in the supramental world, it is the spirit which will become the master of this world in its entirety, and of all its manifestations and all its expressions, consciously, spontaneously, naturally. As long as one can speak about the Spirit, as long as it is a thing that one has read about, whose existence one knows only vaguely, but which is not a very concrete reality to the consciousness, it means that one is not born in the Spirit. When one is born in the Spirit, it becomes something much more concrete, much more living, much more real, much more tangible than the whole material world. And that is what makes the essential difference between being and being. When the world of the Spirit is spontaneously real, when the true, the concrete existence becomes the atmosphere in which one can breathe freely, then one knows that one has passed on to the other side. But so long as it is a thing somewhat vague and imprecise, when one has, of course, heard much of it, one knows that it exists, but it has not a concrete reality. Well, that means that the new birth has not yet taken place. As long as you say to yourself, yes, what I see, what I touch, the ills I suffer from, the hunger that torments me, the sleep that weighs me down, that is true, that is concrete, it means that you have not yet passed over to the other side. You are not born into the Spirit. In reality, the immense majority of men are like prisoners with all the doors and windows closed, so they feel suffocated, which is natural, but they have the key within themselves that opens the doors and the windows, and they do not make use of it. Certainly, there is a period when they do not know that they have the key, but long after they have known that they have the key, long after they have been told about, they hesitate to use it and doubt whether they have the power to open the doors and the windows, or even whether it is good to open them. And even when they have an impression that after all it might be good to open them, they have a fear. What will happen when these doors and windows are opened? And they are afraid. They are afraid of losing themselves in this light, in this freedom. They wish to remain what they call themselves. They like their falsehood and their slavery. Something in them loves it and remains clinging to it. The impression continues with them that without their limits, they would not exist anymore. That is why the journey is so long. That is why it is so difficult. Because if you truly agreed not to be anymore, everything would become very easy, quick, luminous, delightful, although perhaps not in the way man conceives delight and easiness. In fact, there are very few people who do not love battle. There are very few who would agree to there being no night anymore, who do not conceive the light but as the opposite of darkness. Without shadow, there would be no picture. Without struggle, there would be no victory. Without suffering, there would be no delight. That is how they think. And as long as you think like that, you are not born in the Spirit. From Sri Aurobindo. In a certain sense, it may be an error to speak of a goal anywhere in a progression which may well be infinite. Still, we can conceive of an immediate goal, an ulterior objective beyond our present achievement, towards which the soul in man can aspire. There lies before him the possibility of a new birth. There can be an ascent into a higher and wider plane of being, and its descent to transform his members. An enlarged and illumined consciousness is possible that shall make of him a liberated spirit and a perfected force, and, if spread beyond the individual, It might even constitute a divine humanity, or else a supramental, and therefore a superhuman race. It is this new birth that we make our aim. A growth into a divine consciousness is the whole meaning of our yoga, an integral conversion to divinity, not only of the soul, but of all the parts of our nature. If the inmost soul is awakened, if there is a new birth out of the mere mental, vital, and physical into the psychic consciousness, then this yoga can be done. Otherwise, by the sole power of the mind or any other part, it is impossible. If there is a refusal of the psychic new birth, a refusal to become the child newborn from the mother, owing to attachment to intellectual knowledge or mental ideas or to some vital desire, then there will be a failure in the sadhana.